Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN.
I've seen the fire in our nation's eyes when anger prowls for prey. I've heard good people draw their lines and call it holy rage, but the cross was never raised to bless the stones we throw. And if mercy leaves the house, there's something wrong down in the soul. Words ain't bullets, but they can hit the same. And once a heart turns cold enough, it forgets what grace is for. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No, no room for hate. No room for hate. You can wave a flag above it. You can quote a verse or two. You can dress it up like justice till it almost sounds like truth. But outrage ain't righteous when it changes with the side. And you can't love your neighbor, treating them like they're downrange. We're all image bearers, breath of God and dust. And you don't heal a broken land by teaching it not to trust. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. Drag it to the cross, lay it in the ground. Let the blood of Jesus turn the whole thing around. Truth can still be spoken, courage still can't stand, but rage don't get to rule the soul of a faithful man. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. Let
Why am I not? Oh, there we go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our latest from the KLR Radio House Band, hitting streaming services in about 2 weeks. Show will be starting momentarily. Make sure you're sharing the feeds. Got to pay a couple more bills, and then we'll be right back to start the show. My name is Rick Robinson, and it is Chat Lives Matter Day, bitches. Be right back.
In uncertain times, we could use someone to lean on. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma will stand by you with plan options to fit your budget. If you've recently lost your job, had a baby, or moved, you can still get the healthcare coverage you and your family need. Financial help may be available for those who qualify. Call 855-452-BLUE or visit hereforyouok.com to see if you're eligible to enroll. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Otherwise known as Chat Lives Matter Day, right here live on KLRradio.com. I am the opening act for Chat Lives Matter Day. We do this thing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting at noon Eastern time right here live on KLRradio.com. Don't forget to come back tonight. 7 p.m. Eastern, we have Kingdom and Country Bible Study, followed by the, wait, is this? I think, okay, no, this is the first Wednesday. Sorry about that. I was doing math in my head and wasn't doing a very good job. So it'll be the Kingdom and Country Bible Study, followed by the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show, followed by Behind the Enemy Lines Radio, followed by the Rick and Morty Show, followed by potentially Edge of Liberty if his pooter issues have been fixed, because he was having an issue the other day and we haven't touched base. But either way, I'll probably be working until about 1 o'clock in the morning my time. Hopefully you guys will be hanging out with me during the live broadcasts. And anyway, let's get this started. I'm already rambling and there's too many things to talk about. All right, again, welcome in to the Chat Lives Matter Day, Hump Day, Wednesday edition of the Rick Robinson Show, right here live on KLRradio.com and available on replay in most of your favorite podcatchers. As a matter of fact, if you happen to find one that we're not on and it's your favorite, email me at rick@klrradio.com and I will make sure we get there. Now, so remember, most of what I do here, I am a one-man show, so sometimes it takes a while for the archives to catch up. So the best place to actually listen and watch is right here, right now. Whether that is on X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, whatever your flavor is, I'm okay with it. We try to put it everywhere so everybody can watch it if they want to. All right. So anyway, we are here. We are live, and there's just way too much to talk about. So give me just a moment. I lost my link. Where did my link go? I had a link. Oh, wait, never mind. I know what I did, I think. But now I have to find it because I didn't do it how I normally do it. So where did I... Ever have one of those mornings and you realize you have like 8 million tabs open and you don't need half of them, and you're like, I should have shut all this down before I started broadcasting. Anyway. Okay, so you know what? We're just going to do it again because I don't know where it is. So I don't know what happened to it. So we'll just open it again so I know where it's at. All right. So I've already said where we are and who this is and what we're doing. So we're going to start with breaking news out of Virginia because oddly enough, it fits in almost like it was supposed to be here already because it fits in really cleanly with what we're going to be talking about already today. So according to Fox 5 out of D.C., they're reporting that the FBI is executing search warrants at the Portsmouth office of Virginia Senate President Pro Tempore Louise Lucas, a Democrat, as part of what sources are describing as a corruption investigation. Fox 5 also reports that agents are searching a nearby cannabis dispensary and that multiple search warrants were approved by a federal judge. Now, I need to be very clear right here at the top. Search warrants are not charges and they are not convictions. As of right now, officials have not announced charges. They have not disclosed exactly what evidence agents are looking for. And as of the time of me putting this together, they have not explained how the cannabis dispensary is connected to the investigation. So we're going to treat this as exactly what it is, a breaking and developing news story. But politically, this is a major news story. Lucas is not some random backbencher. She is the Virginia Senate President pro tempore, a major Democratic figure in the state. I guess President pro tem. I hate that tempore word. And yes, I know how to pronounce it, but it's still annoying. A major Democratic figure in the state and someone who has been in Virginia politics for a long time. And this lands right as Virginia politics was already on my board today because of the redistricting fight and the state Supreme Court battle over whether Democrats' new map can move forward or not. So for our theme today, it's politicians talking the talk, not walking the walk, and then watching the bill come due. Virginia just moved to the front of the line based on this story because Democrats have spent years giving us lectures about democracy, process, good government, clean government, norms, institutions, all of it. Fine. If that's where you want to go, that's cool. But then the process has to matter. When maps are on the table and clean government has to matter when the FBI is at the door of one of your own. Again, nobody is convicted here. Nobody should be declared guilty from a search warrant. But the left does it all the time. But voters are allowed to notice the timing, the seriousness, and the pattern. They are allowed to say, wait a minute. The same crowd giving me the good government speech seems to have an awful lot of explaining to do, Lucy. Lucy, you've got some explaining to do. And that is where we begin today. A lot of politicians have talked the talk for years. Now, voters are forcing them to walk the walk. And for some of them, because they haven't been, the bill came due. And whoo boy, did it come due last night. From there, let's stay in Virginia for a minute because this FBI search is not the only Virginia story raising questions about process and power. Democrats there also pushed a redistricting referendum that we've been talking about for a while. But guess what? It may now be in serious legal trouble, surprising absolutely no one. Reuters reported that Virginia Supreme Court left in place, at least for now, a lower court block on certifying the results of the referendum. The High Court has not yet issued a final ruling on the merits. And that's the test. Everybody says democracy matters, even though we're not actually a democracy. Everybody says process matters, but the process has to matter even when it slows your side down. The rules have to matter even when they cost your side power. You do not get to wrap every political advantage in the word democracy and then act offended when the courts ask whether you actually followed the rules of a democracy. And that's going to be most of our opening block. Virginia gives us both halves of the problem in real time. A redistricting fight over process and power, and now a federal corruption investigation touching one of the state's top Democratic lawmakers. Does this really surprise anybody, though? Does anybody remember their AG candidate who was like threatening death to people? I think, wasn't that their AG candidate? So am I the only one really unsurprised by this? And I know I have to say this again. This is not a conviction. Ongoing court fights aren't necessarily final ruling, but the theme is already right there. Talk is cheap, governing is harder, and eventually the bill comes due. Now, this is where things get really interesting. And I hope Senator Thune is listening. I hope Senator Thune is listening. Because Indiana gives us the Republican side of the same question. Virginia is what it looks like when Democrats may have pushed too far. Indiana is what it looks like when Republican voters decide their own side didn't push hard enough. So for those of you keeping score at home, President Trump, starting with Texas, basically because we don't like to talk about this part. And I don't know why we don't like to talk about this part. But the Democrats have gerrymandered the hell out of pretty much every map they have control over. And they have been doing it for years. If you look, and we've broken down these numbers before, places like Maine have like 30-40% Republican votership and have like one person that typically holds on to a Republican seat. And does she even really count as a Republican? Oh, we got more on that later too. So yeah, buckle up because that's getting interesting over there. Oof. Anyway. I did not see this coming, and we'll be talking about it probably after the break. However, back to this story. Look, this is pretty simple. Voters are tired of politicians telling us this is what we're going to do if you give us the mantle. Then we give them the mantle, and then they don't do any of it. And then those of us that even when our own side doesn't win, we still listen to the other side saying, well, this is what we said we were going to do if you gave us the mantle. And we're like, well, hopefully you keep your promises. And then usually they don't. However, so what happened was that, starting with Texas, because Republicans have finally decided we're going to start fighting fire with fire. Of course, it takes Donald Trump to make us want to do that for some reason, because we have this whole Marquis of Queensberry rule thing that's gone on now for forever. And we keep saying to ourselves, well, as long as we lose with honor, it doesn't really matter if we lose. And yes, according to Gene and Ross, I sound like Kermit the Frog when I do that. It doesn't sound quite like Kermit in my head. It's supposed to sound like stupid liberal, but tomato, potato. All right. So anyway, so here's the problem, though. Because in Indiana, Donald Trump was saying, hey, we should probably look at the redistricting there. And Republican leadership tried, and then several Republicans said nah. And guess what? Most of them, if not all of them, lost their seats last night. So several Indiana Republican state senators opposed the redistricting push, again backed by President Trump, a plan that could have helped Republicans gain U.S. House seats. Trump and his allies backed primary challengers against those lawmakers. AP reported that a majority of those Trump-backed challengers won, and that 5 senators who voted against the redistricting plan lost their primaries. That's not just the state Senate story. That is a message. Republican voters are tired of electing people who campaign like warriors and govern like milquetoast substitute librarians. Now, that line may sound funny to you, but it's also the truth. The base is not asking for poetry. They're asking for results. And that's I think the part of this, because the Thurston Howell the third wing of the Republican Party keeps asking the same question as the Democratic Party. How the hell does this guy keep getting elected? Well, they've thrown everything they can at him. Every time they think they've got him, he comes back even stronger. We can't do anything with him, and we don't want him. So how the hell is he still here? And it's pretty simple. He resonates with the American people. He may be a billionaire, and he is a billionaire, but he doesn't talk like one. This goes back to something that unfortunately President Barack Obama hit on when he sat down with Stephen Colbert the other day. And I was going to try to have the clip ready, but I don't. So we're just going to talk about it real quick. And I may or may not circle back around to it later. So basically, what he said was he has concerns about the Democratic Party because every time they're talking to the American people, they sound like a professor at a lecture. And he thinks that's why Mamdani the commie managed to win because he talks like everyone else. So does Donald Trump, especially for a rich guy. He uses very plain language. He doesn't craft his sentences. He just talks. And it drives the establishment on both sides crazy. But again, we as Republican voters, and I say we in the collective sense because I'm actually not a Republican, I'm a libertarian, but I do usually vote with Republicans because libertarians are nuts. And I figured that out the hard way after Trump scared me off the first time, and I was like, I can't vote for this guy, and we got to figure some things out. And then I tried, and then it didn't work. But here's the thing, and this is something that I've talked about now for going on, 16, 17 years. You can only tell voters the stakes are historic so many times before they start asking why you govern like nothing is on the line. And that's what happened in Indiana. These voters were told for years that the courts matter, maps matter, majorities matter, power and who holds it matters, the House matters, the country matters. Then when the fight showed up, some of their own elected Republicans got squishy, and the voters said, okay, then we'll find somebody who isn't a squish. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that every political fight is smart. It doesn't mean every map is good. It doesn't mean every demand from the base is automatically wise. But it does mean politicians cannot keep campaigning like everything is a 5-alarm fire and then act shocked when voters expect them to pick up a hose. And no, not the one they have the slush fund for. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? But that's politics now. The bill came due for Democrats who talk democracy, but may have gotten sloppy with the process. And it came due for Republicans who talked about a big fight and a good fight, but got squeamish when the fight actually showed up. And once voters start punishing politicians for not doing what they said they would do, the next question is obvious. Who do they want instead? And that's going to take us to Ohio. Before we get into Ohio, I feel like I need to circle back on this one real quick because this bothers me. Everybody that I keep seeing in the media keeps talking about 2026 as if the fight is some far off thing. We're in the middle of it now. We're starting to see results from it now. The Indiana primaries last night showed the country that despite what the media keeps telling you, because everybody in the legacy media, zombie media, whatever the hell you want to call them, keeps telling you, oh, MAGA is dead. They're on the ropes. They're going to go away. There's going to be a blue wave. Look, I don't know if there's going to be a blue wave. I don't even know if there's going to be a red wave. But I don't think anything's going to go the way the Dems are thinking. And we're going to get into more of that as we go. But here's the thing. You can't keep talking like 2026 elections are a long way off because now we're within 6 months. Nobody's talking about that part. Now, again, in politics, for people that work in politics, that are political consultants, that are campaign managers, 6 months is an eternity. For the voters, it's right around the corner. And that's why the primaries are starting to become more and more important. But here's the thing. In Ohio, something interesting happened last night. Vivek Ramaswamy has won the Republican nomination for governor of Ohio. He will face Democrat Amy Acton in November. Acton is the former Ohio health director who became one of the faces of that state's COVID response, which should probably be enough to hang around her neck, but I guess we'll see. AP also reported that Ohio is setting up a major Senate race between Democrat Sherrod Brown and Republican John Husted. But the governor's race is the cleaner contrast. Ohio voters are getting a pretty clear choice. The guy who built his brand attacking the managerial class or one of the faces of the COVID era expert class. That's the race. And for anybody who didn't keep up with Indiana last night, Ramaswamy won every county in his primary. And he is by no means a conventional Republican politician. He's an entrepreneur, a former presidential candidate, a media fighter, and someone who built a national profile by taking on bureaucracy, corporate wokeness, and what he sees as the permanent ruling class. Amy Acton is almost the perfect Democratic contrast. She represents the public health expert, the institutional trust era, the we know best, stop asking questions era, because Democrats think that they should be your parents. The Democrats will present her as a steady and serious. Republicans will present her as a symbol of everything voters hated about the COVID years. And trust me, people still remember the COVID years. They remember the shutdowns. They remember the school fights. They remember the lectures. They remember the people who told them they were selfish for asking questions. They remember that COVID apparently had a height requirement because you had to wear a mask on the way to your table at a restaurant, but once you got seated, it didn't really matter because I guess COVID has a height restriction of below 4'11" or something. If you're 4'11" or below, you're probably fine. Zelda, that means you probably never had to put a mask on, but who knows? But they remember all of this. They remember being told they were selfish for asking questions, for still wanting to go to church, and being arrested for outdoor activities, when in reality, with everything we now know about COVID, being outside and in the sunshine was probably one of the best things that you could have done. But hey, what do I know? That does not necessarily mean that Acton cannot make her case, because I'm sure she will. And let's face it, pretty much anywhere anymore, Democrats always stick to their guns. Now, unlike a lot of Democrat strongholds, Ohio is not necessarily a place where they can put a D on a glass of water and run it and it wins. But this is not a foregone conclusion. So the other thing that Democrats probably understand is that Republicans are not necessarily just going to let her run as another generic candidate because she's got a lot of baggage from COVID. This is going to be a fight over whether voters want to reward the bureaucracy or move past it. I don't live in Ohio, but as a not fan of bureaucracy like ever, I'm ready to move past it. How about y'all? And that matters beyond Ohio because Democrats want everything to be about Trump. That's their comfort zone. If every race is about Trump, they know the script. But the problem with that is this: they are still running on the past, not the future. And they are hoping that hatred of Trump is going to bring enough Democrats to the table. And it didn't in 2024. I don't know if it's going to in 2026 either. Because you got to remember, in 2024, they thought if they could get him convicted, they had him. He was done. And they thought they got him over and over and over again. But just like Inspector Gadget and the Claw and Dr. Claw, that never really worked out for him either. And no, I'm not necessarily saying that I viewed Trump as Dr. Claw himself, because I don't think he's nearly as evil as the Democrats have painted him to be. I don't know him well enough to speak personally about what type of person he is, but I know people who have known him and have worked with him, and they tell me that he's a pretty amazing person behind the scenes, and the same guy you get in front of the camera is the same guy you get behind the camera. And I don't know very many people that can say things like that anymore. All right, so we are going to take a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to keep this rolling on the other side of the break, though. So again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us. Whether you are listening, watching on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X, make sure you're liking the feed. Make sure you're subscribing to the feed. Remember, subscriptions don't cost you anything most of the time on X or Rumble. And we're not there yet anyway, which is why we need your help growing the platform.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains. winds tried to break our will and wash away our names, but every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, and welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it is Chat Lives Matter Day. I hope all of wonderful weekend. You are nearly there. It is a little bit past bottom of the hour, noon Eastern time-ish, 12:30-ish, if you're in the future zone, otherwise known as East Coast. In God's time zone, it's almost lunchtime. You got about 20 minutes-ish for most of you. So feel it's perfectly okay. And we just had another hiccup again. I don't know what's going on with Restream lately. Anyway, all right, so let's keep things rolling here. So, but welcome back into the program. I'm going to do a couple of quick news hits. So this again may be something we come back to later, but I definitely want to talk about it before we get back into the meat of the topics today, because there were a couple of quick hits that I wanted to get to. So this one I thought was kind of important because I remember being told that things like this were impossible. Things like this were impossible. So here's another breaking story, kind of in the DC, Virginia area. So interesting story that, according to the left, doesn't ever happen. Funny how that works. These things are impossible. They can't. But yeah, watch this.
Members of the Washington, D.C. Police Department are on administrative leave tonight after an internal affairs investigation into the alleged manipulation of crime statistics. Washington Post reporting they are facing termination. The District Police Union is welcoming that decision, saying the move marks a long overdue step toward justice and the restoration of integrity within the department. Members of the Washington, D.C. Police.
Okay, so here's the problem with this, folks. Yes, it's good that they are getting to the bottom of these people. You know, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, we're basically talking about the whole Comstat process, which was first made a big deal in a show called The Commish back in the day, and then was kind of a big deal with Blue Bloods that ran for a long time. But everybody keeps saying that those numbers are entirely impossible to fudge. Well, as soon as they start using language like that, you should be very concerned. The other thing is, there's a reason these things are happening. When the mayor of a city says, we want this stuff to look better than it, because trust me, the cops weren't doing it on their own. Somebody with rank on their collar said this needs to happen. Somebody with a higher rank on their collar said this needs to happen. And it probably started with someone who serves at the pleasure of the mayor being told these numbers are unacceptable, do something about them. But then had their hands handcuffed with their own equipment while trying to do something about them. So while it's good that I think we're finally starting to get to the bottom of some of this stuff, there's a lot more there than anybody wants to admit. Just saying. All right, so now we're going to move to, I think, where are we going to go next? I had these things bookmarked in a particular order. That's not the one I wanted. Yeah, you know what? This is another quick hit, so we'll just do this one. Hang on. So you remember that Maine Democrat dude with the Nazi tattoo that everybody's been having a cow over? And I've just kind of been like, is it really that big a deal if that's who they want to vote for? Well, because I don't live there and I don't really have a say in it, but I got to say this. I had no idea that the Democratic Party in Maine had intended on running Barney from The Simpsons, but here we go. All right, so in case you don't know who that is or what's going on, and since I've probably scarred you for life now, let's discuss, shall we? So that's Graham Plattner, Democratic candidate for Maine in, I believe, the Senate. I think. Hang on. I'm pretty sure it says it in the caption. Yep, the Maine Democrats want this man to be a United States Senator, and the first thing I thought of when I saw this video clip was, oh my God, it's Barney from The Simpsons without a shirt on. But hey, if that's who Maine wants, who am I to judge? All right, so here's another little interesting side note. This is from none other than Barack Obama himself. He put this out 2 hours ago. Michelle and I can't wait for you to visit the Obama Presidential Center. Starting on June 19th, the center will be open to the public, and you'll be able to check out the museum along with public spaces like a new branch of the Chicago Public Library with a reading room, a 2-acre playground, a fruit and vegetable garden, and more. Tickets are available at tickets.obama.org. But please don't forget to bring and he didn't put this part down, but I'm going to save you some time. Please make sure to bring a valid ID when you go to the Presidential Center because they require ID for you to get in, but they don't want you to have to show an ID to vote. Make that make sense. Yeah, BZ in the chat. Good morning, sir. I'm actually with you working so late. I wasn't sure you were going to make it today, but I'm glad to see you. Yeah. So, yeah, again, Barney from The Simpsons, I did not have him on my bingo card for 2026 as a Senate candidate in Maine, but here we are. Although I guess that's probably slandering Barney from The Simpsons because I'm pretty sure Barney's not a Nazi. I'd have to find a better analogy for that one. All right, so let's see what else we can get into. All right, so in another quick hit news around everything, we got to talk about this because this was happening last night, and I almost did a breaking update on it, but I didn't really. There wasn't really enough there that anybody was talking about for me to build a show around it, but it's definitely something we can talk about today because remember how I mentioned Mamdani the commie a minute ago? Yeah, here's his New York City in action last night. All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but does that seem like a peaceful protest to you? Remember that's where these lines always get drawn, right? Is cops aren't supposed to do anything because it's peaceful protest. When the cops are having to hold against the barriers to keep them from being stampeded, that is not a peaceful protest. So I'm going to say this again for probably the millionth time since sometime in Obama's first term. Make water cannons great again. Make water cannons great again.
What are you doing? It's a zone that you can walk. What the fuck are you doing? Jesus, fuck back off. For what?
Go fucking back! Go back! Go back! Go back! That is it! That is it! Please.
Gonna say this again. Terrorists don't deserve civil rights. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Biden. You guys, BZ and I talked about this the other night, and I keep asking myself the question: because remember, this is supposed to be our 250th birthday, and I keep asking myself, is there anything left to save? And then I look at stuff like this, and I'm like, we have become so afraid of these very vocal minority people that just want to go out and kill people and break things and say that it's peaceful protesting, that we don't want to do anything about them. And look, I get it. Remember, I live in Oklahoma. The entire story of my state is about people who broke the rules and did what they wanted to do. We as a people say all the time that we want rules in public and then do things differently behind closed doors. And I understand that. But there still has to be some semblance of a civil contract. Because the problem is the rule of law only applies when both sides agree to follow it. And one side, more and more, is being told that they don't have to follow it. It's not a big deal if they do these things because they're just venting. Their life hasn't been easy. their life hasn't been fair, which is crap. Because most of us do the right thing all day, every day, no matter who's watching. And then we watch all these people doing whatever the hell they want to do, whenever the hell they want to do it, going in with flash mobs, mugging stores, and just emptying them out like locusts. Hell, I saw a story the other day that an alderman out of Chicago is trying to sue Walgreens for leaving because they can't afford to keep the store open because they keep being robbed. It's because of stuff like this.
Like three sessions, right? Like three. That shit don't hurt. That shit hurt like a motherfucker, right?
Okay, so I don't actually know what's going on in that part of it, so I'm probably going to pull away from this now. But this is the stuff that just drives me insane. Because I'm going to say this again. There has always, up until now, been a social contract in this country between most of us and our government that we are willing to follow the majority of the rules. And I understand how crazy that sounds when you realize how this country was founded, how a lot of different things that happened because there were rules for war when we tried to secede from Great Britain, and we said, rules? War? Who needs those? Let's just go stab them all in their sleep. I get that. I really do. So I can see both sides. But the problem is, when this is the result, there has to be something that we can do. There has to be something that we can do. There should be no reason, because my first question is, does this group of people that are supposedly protesting, did they procure a permit? Because if not, guess what? Based on current New York City ordinance, that is then therefore an unlawful assembly. There's a reason we have these policies and procedure in place. It's so that, one, if something goes sideways and there's a permit holder, guess who gets put on the spot for the bill, for all the things that get broken, for the police overtime if it's required, for all those different things. There's a reason they want a paper trail. But there's also a reason why Mamdani no longer seems to want that paper trail. Because let's not forget, he's one of those people. And I don't say that in the racist sense. I'm saying he is one of those people. He's a Muslim. And I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a peaceful Muslim. There are Muslims who don't practice, and then there are Muslims who want you dead. And then eventually the Muslims that don't practice go, oh, it's almost caliphate time. Let me get in on this. I need my 72 Virgils. Right? BZ in the chat. Permit? They don't need no stinking permits. And look, I get it. Again, trust me, I understand how this sounds as somebody who for the most part, tries to be a free speech absolutist. But there are reasons these things are required, because then you have legal recourse. If somebody's doing things they're not supposed to do during an unpermitted protest, you then also have legal recourse if somebody's doing something that they are not supposed to do during an actual permitted protest. There are reasons these things exist. This goes back to one of the things that was really big when Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York City, and it was called broken taillight policing. Basically, go after the small things, because the small things, if you clean up enough of those, usually you're nipping a lot of bigger things in the bud. And that, of course, made everybody mad, because that led to things like stop and frisk and yada, yada, yada. Look, if you want to live in a big ass city with millions of people, most of which don't want to follow the rules, then you should not be surprised when people try to do things to take care of a lot of folks that don't want to follow the rules. Yeah, broken windows, broken taillights. But that's always been a thing. It's always been go after the low hanging fruit because a lot of times when you go after the low hanging fruit, you find something else. As somebody that used to do this kind of work, this is one of the things that drives me nuts about the media. I'm so tired of always hearing them talk about how there's routine traffic stops. First of all, there's no such thing as routine traffic stops. None. But a lot of times when you stop them because they have a headlight out or a tail light out or their tags a few days out or their tag light is out, you typically find something else. And that becomes important because by using the low hanging fruit that you have access to, you are stopping a lot of other crimes from being committed. But of course, since the cops are now the bad guys and the cops are the Nazis, hell, you heard it in that video. NYPD, KKK, make these assholes go away. I'm pretty sure that's what it said. It was kind of muffled, but I'm pretty sure that's where they were going. But yeah, so anyway. Okay, so that was our quick hit in the news. We got to get back to the stuff that we were talking about before the break, because again, we were talking about Ohio because Ramaswamy won last night. And of course, the Democrats, and especially the ones involved in gubernatorial races, want everything to be about Trump because that's their comfort zone. If every race is about Trump, they know the script, they know the tone, they know how to scare the voters back into line. And it's interesting that this comes up tonight because this is today because this is Kingdom and Country Bible Study night on KLR Radio starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be talking about that spirit of fear. And then Monday night, we will be talking about that from a political perspective on America Off the Rails. That's the show that I planned on doing Monday, but felt like crap Monday night after doing the morning show. So still got that one on the books too. But here's the thing. Voters aren't thinking about Trump, at least not completely, because unless some sort of magic rabbit gets pulled out of the hat, he isn't allowed to run again. They are thinking about their schools. They're thinking about public safety and the fact that everybody's being told to hate police now. They're thinking about their grocery bills, gas prices, immigration, housing, energy, and whether anyone in government learned anything from the last several years. Ohio becomes a test for that question. Did the people in charge learn anything, or are they just asking for the keys back? Ohio gives us one big race, but the bigger warning for Democrats is that some of their usual voters may not be as automatic as they used to be. Now, this is from Axios, by the way. Axios reported this week that Republicans see an opening with black voters, especially as younger voters become less tied to traditional party loyalty. Red State framed that as legacy media finally being forced to notice what right of center outlets like this one have been talking about for years. Black voters, especially younger black voters, and especially black men, are not behaving as predictably as Democrats, as predictably Democratic as they used to. Now, we can't overstate this. The story is not that black voters are suddenly Republicans, because they're not. The story is that some voters, Democrats counted as automatic, are starting to look around. They're starting to take a little tiptoe off of that voting plantation that the Democrats have built for them, which is honestly the biggest reason you're seeing them have a meltdown over what's happened with the Voting Rights Act in Louisiana. Because as much as they have tried to tell you now for decades that the party switched after the Civil Rights Act was passed, that is not true. And let me connect the dots for you real quick before we go to the break. Here's how we know it's not true. The same party that was funding the KKK in the 1860s has now been caught funding them again in 2026. The same party that was famous for plantations stopped making them with land partitions and started building them with voter maps. The parties never switched. The fact that so many Democrats, when they're supposed to be the party of the thinking class, can't see who they truly are and what their actual candidates and eventually elected officials want, it's because they don't want to see it, not because it's not there. And I'm not saying Republicans are completely innocent in all this either, but I'm saying every step forward in history that the Democrats want to tell you never really happened was started by a Republican. And a Republican-led Congress, Republican-led Senate, Republican president, and even all the way down to the state house levels. Most civil rights gains were done because of Republicans, not in spite of them, but because it was usually a Democrat crowing the loudest after it got done. They were the ones that got all the credit. Let's not forget that a grand wizard of the KKK was a sitting senator for years on the Democratic side. Well, after Reconstruction and everything else. So this is why the Democrats are scared. The Democratic coalition depends on certain groups voting in predictable ways at predictable margins. Black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters, union households, suburban white women's. Hang on. I know. I gotta.
Hey, where are the white women at?
Because it's what the Democrats are. Well, up until the last election, that's what they were kind of asking, because they were even starting to lose them. And then I because of the whole Roe v. Wade thing, they got scared back onto their particular brand of plantation. Anyway, so anytime the Democrats start trying to look at their coalitions, they build all their math around those assumptions. But voters can leave, although, especially if you're a person of color and you leave the Democratic Party, you're called an Uncle Tom. That alone becoming a slur should have told everybody, because I remember this, and I don't know why it stuck with me, because I was a kid when this episode came out, but I remember an episode of The Jeffersons where George was screaming and yelling about, black people, and said something about, I don't remember who it was, but he said somebody was an Uncle Tom. And this is the part that stuck with me, because the person that he was complaining to, I think it was because he said he thought he was going to be called an Uncle Tom. And then the person that he was complaining to said, well, George, we would never call you that. And here's why. And then they gave the history of the character of Uncle Tom, who was actually based on an African-American slave who, before Harriet Tubman, managed to escape to Canada and started building an underground railroad into Canada. So that's the thing. They take everything and they twist it. And then because they tell you what to think and they tell you what you need to know, you, for the most part, don't do any checking on your own. The problem that they're running into now is, I say this all the time, we now have as much computing power in our pocket or more than got us to the moon in the 60s. And we have all the information we would ever want at our fingertips. And sadly, this means they don't have the information stranglehold that they used to, which is why more and more people are starting to leave. For decades, Democrats treated certain communities like inheritance and property. These voters are ours. These neighborhoods are ours. These churches are ours. These margins, yeah, they're all ours. But at some point, people start asking a very plain question. And this, I'm stealing from Eddie Murphy. What have you done for me lately, Eddie? Not what have you promised, not what have you accused the other side of doing, not what historic loyalty do you think someone owes you. What have you actually done? That's where things get dangerous for Democrats. Identity politics works best when voters feel trapped. It works best when the pitch is, you may not like us, but the other side, they hate you. And that has been their sales pitch for a long time. But the question becomes, have voters stopped believing that? We'll get more into that when we come back. Again, my name is Rick Robinson. This is my show, And it is top of the hour, so we do have to take a break. Stay tuned. Make sure you're sharing out the feed. Hey, I see a Denny siding in the chat, and we're going to get this rolling here. So be right back. Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name is Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
I've seen the fire in our nation's eyes when anger prowls for prey. I've heard good people draw their lines and call it holy rage, but the cross was never raised to bless the stones we throw. And if mercy leaves the house, there's something wrong down in the soul. Words ain't bullets, but they can hit the same. And once a heart turns cold enough, it forgets what grace is for. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. You can wave a flag above it. You can quote a verse or two. You can dress it up like justice, till it almost sounds like truth. But outrage ain't righteous when it changes with the side. And you can't love your neighbor, treating them like they're downrange. We're all image bearers, breath of God and dust. And you don't heal a broken land by teaching it not to trust. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. Drag it to the cross, lay it in the ground. Let the blood of Jesus turn the whole thing around. Truth can still be spoken, courage still can stand, but rage don't get to rule the soul of a faithful man. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. Let revival start where the anger breaks. Where the anger breaks. Let healing rise up where his name. No room for hate.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Otherwise known as Chat Lives Matter Day, Hump Day, Wednesday, and we are halfway through the workday, especially if you're in God's time zone. If you're in the future time zone, meh, and especially if you're living in the past, sorry about your luck. Anyway, so we're here, we're live, and it is, of course, as always, every Wednesday is Chat Lives Matter Day. No matter what Politibunny used to say, we love our chat members, and thank you so much for those of you that are hanging out in the chat. For those of you who may not know or maybe new around here, all of our chats are open. I know a lot of folks, when their shows get to a certain point, they start locking chat where you can only do it in one or two places. We don't do that yet. I don't know if we ever will. Anyway, so we're here. We're live. And still got plenty of things to talk about. All right. So we opened with this, but there's been some updates, so we're going to get back into it. Again, want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us. All right, I kind of want to leave that playing in the background while I'm fidgeting here. But anybody remember this? Because if you're just joining us, you might have missed a bit of an update because, reasons. So if you missed it, the FBI has issued search warrants for the Virginia Senate President Pro Tem Louise Lucas. Her district office in Portsmouth is part of a corruption investigation. According to a person familiar with the matter, the FBI itself would only confirm it was conducting a court-authorized search warrant in Portsmouth and said it was an ongoing investigation. AP also notes that Lucas helped lead Virginia's recent redistricting effort, which keeps this tied to one of the stories that we've already been talking about today. According to Fox 5, Fox-linked reporting says agents also searched a nearby cannabis dispensary, and Fox describes the probe as involving alleged corruption and illegal marijuana sales. Ruh-roh, Raggy. Fox also reports Lucas arrived Lucas arrived while these searches were happening and said she did not know what agents were doing there. Still, there have been no charges announced at this time. The exact target scope of the investigation is not yet public knowledge, and we are not saying that she's guilty of anything because it's only search warrants, but that's because we try to be better than the left. Anyway, so when AP, and of course AP has confirmed the FBI is searching the office of one of Virginia's top Democrats in a corruption probe, that moves this from Twitter smoke to a real fire alarm. But again, not yet a guilty verdict. So I definitely wanted to open with that because, especially because Donald Trump just learned no one is above the law. Oh, well, guess what? I guess you were right, because apparently no one is above the law. And you're not no one. So there you go. All right. So sorry. I know she hasn't been charged with anything, convicted yet, but let's face it, the left does everything in court of public opinion. And as much as that pisses me off, as Spock once said to Savick, sauce for the goose. Just saying. All right. So back to this, because before we went into this and we went to the break, we were still talking about the black voter peel off. And that's because they're tired of the same old sales pitch. But this goes back to what I talked about in the beginning of the show. Politicians promise us things all the time and then never deliver. And look, I don't expect them to deliver on 100% of their promises, because I understand how the world works. If politicians actually fixed everything that was broken that they claimed they were going to fix, they would put themselves into a state of obsolescence. If government actually did its job, we wouldn't need them anymore. And for those of you who don't know what obsolescent means, it means outdated, but still a little useful, not completely obsolete, is basically the layman's definition for that word, to try to break it down as best I can. But again, because voters are starting to not believe the whole we're the best option for you and these people hate you, or that if they decide that their long-term issues with grocery bills that they've been facing now for years matter more, especially because nobody's talking about the fact that one of the things that we're starting to slowly see come down is the cost of beef. And that's because Donald Trump's administration has been undoing a lot of stupid crap that Biden's administration has done. We're seeing very high gas prices, but I would like to remind you of why we're seeing those high gas prices, because the same people that are caterwauling about them now wanted me and you to pay anywhere between $6 per gallon for gas, or closer to what Europe pays, all the way back to Biden and even Obama, because they were worried about penguins. They were worried about the environment, and oil is bad for the environment. Never mind the fact that it is a plentiful resource, unlike what the Rockefellers started trying to tell everybody way back in the day, because it helped make them rich. Ooh, if we make people think this stuff is scarce, we can charge them whatever we want to charge them for it to get it out of the ground. But look, I don't like seeing oil by the barrel at $100 either. But what I really love seeing is people that don't really understand how inflation works saying, well, when it was this high 20 years ago, gas was only 3 something. Now it's 4 something. With what our dollar is worth now between what it was worth 16 years ago, you're lucky it's not 8. And the reason it's not 8 is because Donald Trump. Donald Trump has made us energy independent again. We are actually making money off of oil right now because of how expensive it is. Because the thing about it is, there's this delicate balancing act, and it's talked about really well on Landman. There's a scene where he's yelling at the radio because they're talking about how low oil prices go. And he's like, this just proves you morons don't know what the bleep you're talking about, because oil can be this low and we still make money at it. And it's almost never that low anyway. And it's just one of those things. And it is. Because these people have found efficient ways to get to it. It doesn't cost them nearly as much to get to it as it used to. They now are finding new and creative ways to extend the life of wells past their due dates. They're also finding, interestingly enough, that a lot of times if you come back to a well that you thought was dry a few years ago, you start to find that it has some pressure building again. Because this isn't a finite resource. I would question whether this may or may not be the Earth's version of blood and how infinite it is, but that would make this more of a metaphysical show, and that's usually every other Saturday. But again, back to this whole thing, because where this all started is the left's premise to voters has really started to wobble. I think this is especially true with younger men, especially including younger black men and younger Hispanic men. A lot of them are not interested in being talked to like victims. And that's been the left's shtick now for years. This is all the white man's fault, and we're going to make it better for you. They're not interested in being scolded by people who think masculinity is a public health crisis. They're not interested in being told that ambition, faith, family work, and national pride are somehow suspicious. And here's another little interesting tidbit that just broke yesterday. Puerto Rico just passed a bill that is now a law, I believe. I think it's already been signed. Stating that life begins at conception. So just like that, ladies and gentlemen, Democrats are no longer going to be pushing for Puerto Rico to become a state. Now, for one issue Republican voters, they may start pushing for it. I would caution them, though. Just saying. Because again, they are not interested in being told that all of the things that concern them, including being proud of who they are, even proud of where they came from to a degree, especially if they're not from here, but proud to have made it here and done so the right way, that's all now apparently a bad thing. They want opportunity. They want respect. They want safety. They want to be treated like citizens, not demographic props. That gives the Republicans the opening they've been looking for, but only if they don't get lazy. And unfortunately, more often than not, my side gets a little lazy. Which is odd when you think about it, really, because we're supposed to, every time everybody jokes about election day, well, our side will show up later because we got to work. But then when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's like, we'll just kind of phone it in. Anyway, so a voter becoming available is not the same thing as a voter becoming yours. You still have to earn it. You still have to show up. You still have to talk to people like human beings. You still have to offer something better. Then at least we're not those guys. But again, the opening is there. The question is, are the GOP going to be able to capitalize on it? Do they understand enough about what's going on to be able to capitalize on it? Or do they even care enough to try to capitalize on it? And I'm going to say most of the establishment, probably not. Again, Democrats talked for years like they owned entire communities because they felt like they did. Now, some of those voters are acting like free people because they are. And it looks like that bill might be about to come due for the Democrats, too. And this is where politics gets real. People don't live in polling charts. They live in neighborhoods, towns, cities, and public spaces. That's why the next bit we're going to be talking about is we shift a little bit local here. That's why this matters, because the Oklahoma public safety story matters. Here in Oklahoma, the Arcadia Lake shooting is now even worse than the first reports. AP reports that one person has died. 22 others were injured by gunfire or shrapnel after a shooting at a weekend lakeside party in Edmond. Police say the party was promoted on social media, drew young adults, and was held at a public park pavilion without a required reservation. Authorities believe the violence began after a fight, and no arrests have been made as of this report. That is not just a crime story, that's a community story. A public space, young people, a crowd, an argument. Gunfire erupts, bystanders hit. Now we have a young woman who's no longer with us. People do not want a 5-point academic explanation when shots are flying at a public gathering. They want to know someone is in charge. That's not unreasonable. That's not extreme. That is not some dark authoritarian impulse. That's just actually how civilization works. Can your kid go to a lake? Can your family go to a public event? Can young people gather without chaos taking over? If what we saw in New York City last night is any indication, probably not. Can law enforcement respond? Will they bother to respond? Can communities enforce basic standards before everything goes sideways? The political class loves to leave the arguments in abstract terms and using abstract language. They love stakeholders. They love root causes. They love community investment. They love phrases that sound like they came out of a grant application written by a committee of people who never answer their own phones. So fine. Have the conversation, but people also want the shooting to stop. That's not complicated. And I'm going to say this again, because we don't have a gun violence problem in this country. We have a heart problem in this country. Half of the country has been told it is okay to hate the other half. And that goes for both sides. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if we can fix that. But this is what ties everything back to everything we've been talking about today. Because if politicians tell us public safety matters, then public safety has to matter before the press conference. It has to matter before the tragedy. It has to matter before families are trying to find out whether their kid is in a hospital bed. That is when this particular bill comes due. All right. So are the people in charge actually doing their job? And with that, we have to head to Los Angeles here in a minute. I don't want to go. Not really. We're just going for the sake of a story, so I don't actually have to go in person or anything. But yeah. Anyway. So yeah, we're going to head to Los Angeles, where City Hall is apparently trying to fight federal immigration enforcement with signs. Federal officials say the signs do not mean anything legally. Meanwhile, one of Karen Bass's challengers is using viral ads to show voters what life in Los Angeles actually looks like. And I do have one of them on a clip, because Republicans, and look, I don't even know if this dude's actually a Republican, because California does jungle primary stuff. So I don't know if he actually is one or not. But even if he isn't one, Republicans, please take note. This is how you kick ass and take names. Right here. Because this is an amazing video, and it only runs for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. I forgot when it winked out on me earlier. It's only picking up my mic, so hang on. I gotta do some tweaking, and not the fun kind. So let's see if we can make this work now. I hope. Because I was waiting for somebody to say, there's no sound on that, right? Well, I didn't then, but I do now. All right, let's try this again.
Please, I'm begging you. There's homeless drug addicts in front of the schools. My children aren't safe.
Look, if you were a transgender migrant, I could get you a free pussy.
Let's move the drug addicts closer.
Bass already solved crime. I endorse her.
Next!
Please, I just want to rebuild my home. It's been over a year.
Mom, look.
This is a machine. If we want to burn this town to the ground,
Pull through that! I feel so close.
You can do it, Spencer!
Now.
And I'll be honest, LA is worth saving. So is Califailure or Commie Failure, whatever moniker you want to give it. But the question is, are there enough people who actually give a damn about the city and the state left to do anything about it? He's hoping so. He being, I believe, Spencer Pratt, if memory serves. But remember when the right was making Trump out to be Batman because of his billionaire status and everything. So I get it. It's kind of borrowing from some other lanes, but that, I mean, as funny as it was to watch, as entertaining as it was to watch, show me the lie. Show me the lie. These people in Los Angeles have been waiting over a year to be able to rebuild their homes. And remember, those of us that, do this for a living told you pretty much within the first few days of the fire that just wait for it because the city and the state are going to try to swoop in and create low-income housing. And everybody in the mainstream media and half the people that used to hang out in our chats back then told us we were crazy. And guess what's happened? Remember when Governor Hairgel said he was going to do everything he could to cut all the red tape and then no red tape was cut? Remember when Karen Bass said, yeah, let them eat cake? Because she pretty much did. That's why this matters. That's why all of this matters. Look, California used to be one of the jewels of our country, and it should be again, and it could be again. The thing that makes me the most sad about California is realizing that during the Dust Bowl, a lot of folks from here went there and then became those people. How did that even happen? I can tell you how, but I can't really make it make sense unless you're willing to understand it. Hard times make hard people. Soft times make stupid people. For most of the last 20, 30 years or so, we really haven't had too much to worry about. We've had plenty. We've had abundance. I mean, hell, compared to the rest of the world, even our poor are rich. That's why I keep saying, when the Democrats keep hornswoggling you with this whole, we're only going after the 1%, they keep telling you, or they keep forgetting to tell you that the 1% they're talking about isn't the 1% you're thinking of. Because they're talking about worldwide. Guess what? Even our poorest people are in the top 1% of the rest of the world. And that's the part that they never really want to talk to you about. But since we're in California, let's go to this. Does everybody remember disgraced candidate Eric Swalwell? Because I remember. So does Pepperidge Farm. But you might not know this, because this is kind of big. And this just proves how dumb all this crap really is. Here we go.
The New York Times wrote about Eric Swalwell. We know he's a disgraced congressman, not in your party, other party, but same state. They said this, that Mr. Swalwell is still to this day using Snapchat as recently as this week. Swalwell communicated directly with a former intern on the app and asked her why she took a screenshot of his chat history. Why is he still messaging interns on Snapchat?
Because he's sick in the head and he's arrogant. This is what these politicians become. They go to Washington, they get in that culture, and they think the law doesn't apply to them and that they can act.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be that guy, but I think this guy sounds just about as low T as Swallows well. Not a nice thing to say. Gonna let the tape play on, but had to be
boorishly and break the rules and treat people with utter disrespect. That's the epitome of the Washington do as I say, not as I do culture. But the reality is also that the Democrat Party protected him. Don't tell me that senior Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and Xavier Becerra and others didn't know about his bad behavior. They knew damn well. They knew Katie Porter was disrespecting her staff, but they protect their own as long as they are useful. When Democrats got worried that they were going to get locked out of the governor's race in this primary, they decided Swalwell and Katie Porter were no longer useful to them, and that's why they released the damaging information. It's corrupt, Kaylee, and they know that they protect these bad actors until they're no longer useful.
And I'm going to say that again for those of you that might have missed it. The only reason Swalwell got thrown under the bus is because he wasn't useful anymore. They thought that he was going to get them locked out of the primary because California has a jungle primary, which means it doesn't matter what the letters are behind the names of the top two vote getters. The top 2 vote getters, whether they both be D or both be R, or even a mix somewhere thereof, they still get to go to the primary. Or not the primary, but the general. So they thought Swallowswell was going to lock them out. And all of this that's come to light still may, because the thing about Swallowswell, he's pissed, so he's taking people out on the way with him. Which, yeah, not my circus, not my monkeys, but I do want to pop some popcorn while I watch what's happening. I don't know about y'all. All right, so we've got plenty of stuff to get through still. Hell, we may not even get to a lot of the stuff that's on my in my notes for the day because I over-prepared, which sadly is kind of my thing anymore. It's funny, I used to make fun of G for coming and doing a show with like 20, 30 pages of notes. Then I started actually paying attention to the notes that I was taking, and it winds up being 20, 30 pages of notes. Anyway, all right, so because I know for a fact y'all had a really rough night looking at you, NYPD, we're going to play this one at the break in case anybody out there is listening. A lot of us still care about our first responders. And here's one for you guys. We'll be right back.
Comes in, somebody answers. Day or night, they're already moving. Calm voices, fast hands, doing the work while the rest of the world freezes. From a headset to a truck, from a badge to a door, they don't stop to count the cost. They step in when it matters. It's not about being seen, it's about being there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Before the sirens fade, before the scene is clear, someone's already making sense of the moment. Keeping people alive, keeping things from getting worse. Some run toward danger, some stay behind and hold it together. Different roles, same weight, same promise to show up. When everything's on the line, they're already there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. This is service, this is sacrifice, this is how lives are saved. No spotlight, no applause, just showing up again and again. They're holding the line when the world goes dark. When everything's breaking, they hold their ground. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line. So we raise our voices for the ones who stand. Every voice, every badge, every helping hand. They don't ask why,
right, so before we move on to another quick hit that just came on my radar that ties in everything we're talking about today, we haven't been able to leave California, California yet because there's more going on. So hang on, I got another clip in that region that we definitely want to talk about right about here. And this is during the California gubernatorial debate, which I believe happened last night. Certain candidate said the quiet part out loud and was hoping it would earn her votes and not turn voters away. And of course, this is from the Communist News Network, otherwise known as the Always Correcting Themselves News Network. Here we go.
Congresswoman Porter, your thoughts on the idea of funding health care for undocumented immigrants statewide?
Yes.
Yes, and
that's, by the way, what I think Californians deserve as answers to these questions, Alex.
And for critics who say that we can't afford it, what do you...
So, again, according to her, people that have broken into this country that are here illegally, they're Californians. And they deserve to be on the dole. All right, so that's probably where we're going to leave California for the day because... Again, dude, you gotta remember. So a lot of you may not know this, but as a kid, I never really figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I would vacillate a lot because I'm one of those people that always had like a million different ideas running through my head. Probably back before they really knew what ADD and ADHD actually were. So it was first I wanted to be a doctor. Then I wanted to be a paramedic. This is thanks to shows like Marcus Welby, Rampart, and then Adam 12. Eventually, for a little bit, I wanted to be a cop. And of course, if I wanted to be a cop, I wanted to move out to LA and be part of LAPD. And then the movies like Iron Eagle and Top Gun came out, and for like 5 seconds, I flirted with the idea of being a fighter pilot. Then I realized how much I actually did enjoy that kind of stuff, but realized that because of vision issues and everything else, I was never going to be able to be a fighter pilot. But I did spend a lot of time flying simulations once computers became a thing and I could spend hours doing those kind of things. So it was one of those things where eventually I did figure out what I wanted to do and then figured out how to do it. And then every time I turned around, life was saying, hey, we're glad you got to do this, but because of this, now you get to do something else. And hey, we're glad you got to do this, but because of this, you get to do something else. So it's probably a good thing that I never really figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. But the reason I say all of this to you is because of this. There was a brief stint when I thought I wanted to be a reporter, which is kind of how we got to doing stuff like this. But we got to, so because of that, that's one of the reasons why I try to break as many different stories as I can when they come out. But this ties back into everything that we've been talking about today, which is the theme of politicians and institutions always talking the talk. And then the bill comes due and then we find out whether they did or not. So remember years ago when we kept saying, yeah, there's some shady stuff that happened in 2015, 2016. So FBI Director Kash Patel is now saying the quiet part out loud, and he's saying what a lot of people on the right have argued for years, that the FBI lied or misled its way into surveillance warrants connected to Donald Trump and the 2016 campaign. In comments highlighted by Fox News and Red State, Patel accused the Bureau and his predecessors of using bogus, unverified information to obtain surveillance warrants and spy on Trump world figures during the Russia investigation. Fox reported that Patel said the warrants were used to spy on Trump and top officials, including Patel himself. Now, there are a couple pieces here that still matter. First, I know this may feel like ancient history just because, especially for those of us that work in politics, 2016 feels like 3 political lifetimes ago. But the reason this all still matters is because the same surveillance architecture is still being debated right now. Congress just passed a short-term 45-day extension of FISA Section 702, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Authority that can also, incidentally, collect Americans' communications when they are communicating with foreign targets. According to Reuters, that extension passed while critics in both parties continue arguing for stronger protections against abuse. Hell with that, get rid of it. And this is one of the things that I have openly disagreed with Donald Trump about, because the thing that ticks me off is I like it when he's consistent. And on a lot of things, he's been consistent. He's been saying the same thing about Iran for as long as he's been in the public spotlight. They cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. It cannot happen because they will use it. And they've told us as much. The same people that want us dead and openly have said they want us dead have been saying chants in Arabic or whatever language they use there. I don't remember. I think it's Arabic. Things like first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. That was a very popular Islamic chant all the way back in the 50s and 60s. But here's the thing. And this is exactly why people do not just trust the process anymore. Because Donald Trump, when he was in office the first time, after railing against FISA, said, maybe it's not so bad after all. Then, even after seeing how it was used to nearly destroy his life, his family's life, their livelihoods, and railing against it again for the 4 years he was not in office, now that he's got control of the pen again, said, maybe this FISA thing isn't so bad after all. I want consistency. And as a sitting president who watched people come for you over and over and over again, you were the one who in 2015, this was your campaign. They want to come after you. They're coming after me because I'm in the way. And then you get to be the guy who decides what happens with things like FISA and the Patriot Act and all of these things that came up out of fear, where people were like, oh my God, it's so terrible. Maybe we need to give up a little bit of our civil liberties and a little bit and add in some more security just so we can be safe. And then we start seeing our government abuse it. Freedom is painful. Freedom is dangerous. Freedom means that you often are working without a net. But it's also really the only way to ever get anywhere in life. Because as long as you're playing it safe, as long as you're working within the guardrails, especially with the way things are now, because that didn't used to be as big of a deal, because companies used to pay well before there was really such a thing as minimum wage. They offered really good benefits because before there was such a thing as mandatory health insurance, because mandatory things always make things better. You just look at what's happened to car insurance as it became compulsory. They violate state and federal law every single day because they're not supposed to be able to check your credit score because it's compulsory, but they do it anyway. And then they don't refuse to insure you for the most part. They just jack your ish up if you have a bad credit score and then say, well, what you going to do? Because you got to have it anyway. And I know I'm all over the place with this, but that's how much this stuff pisses me off, because I just want consistency. And now again, Donald Trump is president is like, yeah, that FISA stuff that I said was terrible. Yeah, maybe not so much, as long as I get to be the one to use it. My litmus test has always been this: just because you like how something works when your side is getting to use it, you should be very careful and think about what happens when the other side gets a turn, especially if you dislike the other side as much as I dislike the other side, because I do. Because they're disingenuous. The problem is, with this FISA argument, Donald Trump is being rather disingenuous too. But again, this is why people don't trust the process anymore. When the FBI, the entire intelligence apparatus, or any law enforcement agency asks for extraordinary power, the answer cannot be, trust us, bro, we're the professionals. Because remember, with extraordinary power comes great responsibility. And I know I just paraphrased Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, but what the hell? Trust us, because remember, we're the professionals. Because voters remember what happened the last time the professionals told them everything was fine. And if the voters have forgotten, Pepperidge Farm sure the hell remembers. They remember Russia collusion. They remember the FISA fights. They remember the warrants. They remember the corrections, the retractions, the hearings, the Inspector General reports, and all the people who insisted there was nothing to see until suddenly there was a lot to see. And that does not mean America can't have intelligence tools. Although America and intelligence is often a contradiction in terms when it comes to those kind of groups. Of course, we need intelligence tools that aren't contradictions in terms. There are foreign threats, terror threats, cartel threats, cyber threats, and all kinds of people who would love to do real harm to this country. While we're on the subject, this came up yesterday, and I got to admit, because I was only like 7 at the time when I found something out. Did anybody else not know that in 1980, China owned like 2,000 acres of American farmland in 1980? I don't even want to talk about the number that they own today, but why in the hell, in the middle of the war on communism, did we sell 2,000 acres of farmland to China? Looking at you, Jimmy Carter. Because remember, Reagan didn't get sworn in until 81. Just pointing that out. But again, these are all things that can do real harm to this country, including the fact that we seem to be making backdoor deals with China. Does anybody remember that Bernie Sanders was just, holding an AI conference with Chinese officials? Isn't there a law against that? Pretty sure there's a law against that. Isn't it? What is that? The Hatch Act or Logan Act? I know it's one of them. It's one that never gets used, but it's one the other side likes to throw around a lot. And I'm thinking this might actually qualify. But anyway. But as we're finding out, especially with folks like Bernie Sanders and a lot of other folks, but power without accountability is not national security. It is an invitation to abuse. That's the line. That's the point of no return. And if Kash Patel is right, and I firmly believe that he is, because I've been saying it for longer than he's been saying it, and if he's right that the people inside the FBI lied to get surveillance authority against a presidential campaign or people connected to it, then the bill should come due for that too. Not with speeches, not with cable news outrage, not with strongly worded letters that go into File 13, but with actual consequences. Because if nobody pays a price for abusing surveillance power in one of the most politically sensitive investigations in modern American history, then why would anybody ever believe that it wouldn't happen again? And that's the problem. You cannot tell Americans, don't worry, this power will never be abused. Well, they're still watching the last abuse get explained away as a paperwork issue. So yes, this might seem like a bit of an aside, but I promise you this story belongs in the same pile that I've put the rest of them in, because maps, cities, public safety, political violence, surveillance power, different lanes, same question. Did the people in charge actually live by the standards they demanded from everyone else? And if they didn't, then eventually, as we saw last night in Indiana, the bill comes due. And as we talked about in the beginning of the program, did, oh boy, it come due for those folks. Anyway, so we already talked about the Mayor Bass sign things. I had a little bit more to go into that, but I think we talked about it well enough. So anyway. Oh, I guess we do got to go back to Califailure for a minute. I forgot about this one because this ties into everything else that's going on. So according to Town Hall, that Scranton Mayor, Paige Cognetti, the one that was running for Congress, while simultaneously running for re-election as mayor, is facing criticism that she has been neglecting city business while pursuing higher office. The report says her official government X account went 44 days without a new post while her personal and campaign-facing presence stayed active, and it points to criticism from a Democratic city councilman over the mayor's office allegedly being slow or silent on a dedicated ambulance service issue. Now, let's set the party labels aside for a second. This is the political equivalent of leaving dishes in the sink while applying to be a restaurant manager. If you cannot get the ambulance plan answered in Scranton, maybe the next promotion shouldn't be Congress. And this leads to a broader problem that we're now focusing in on more and more often, because too many local offices are now being used, instead of trying to make things better, as a launch pad into bigger and better things. And this is part of, again, why I think everybody has it backwards, because real change happens at the city level. Real change happens at the county level. Real change happens at the state level. If you are relying on the federal government to fix everything that's broken, it's already too broken for you to worry about. And I've been saying that for a long time, because a city hall is no longer treated like a job. It's treated like a resume line. Mayor today, congressional candidate tomorrow, cable news guest host next week, donor dinner after that. Meanwhile, the people who actually live there are asking basic questions. Where the hell is our mayor? What happened to this plan to fix our ambulance problems? Where's the public safety answer? Where's the street repair? Why are there so many damn potholes? What are we going to do about the homeless folks camping out on the sidewalks? I thought we elected people for their competence, not because they said platitudes properly. Should that really be that much to ask? Local government is where politics gets closest to real life. Your mayor should matter. Your city council should always matter. Your school board, especially if you have children or nieces and nephews or even cousins, should always matter. Your sheriff matters. Your county commissioners matter. These are the offices that determine whether daily life works. So when local officials treat those jobs like stepping stones instead of full-time commitments, voters notice, as well they should. If you want a promotion, do the job you already have. So the question is simple. Do you want leaders who perform or leaders who govern? Because there is a difference, and it's a big difference. Performing is putting up anti-ICE signs that federal officials say have no legal effect. Governing is passing actual policy, enforcing actual law, funding actual services, being accountable for actual results. Performing is something people you hear. Governing is proving it when nobody's clapping. And this is where Republicans have a real opportunity if they don't blow it. It is not enough to laugh at the left when they put up signs and call it leadership. Voters need to see what actual governing looks like. They need public safety. They need schools that work. They need energy costs that can survive. They need streets that don't look like a failed archaeological dig. They need immigration policy that means something. They need leaders who are not embarrassed by the idea of enforcing the law. That is the opportunity, especially in places like California, where Republicans are typically the minority party. But opportunity itself is not the victory, because you still have to deliver. If red states are going to be the contrast and red cities inside blue states are going to be the contrast, then be the contrast in results, not just your attitude. Do not just say the left is failing. Show people a way to move forward that not only highlights how they failed, but how you are going to succeed. Because voters are tired of being told who the villains are. They want to know who can fix the problems. And that question gets even more serious when we move from city services and campaign stunts to political violence. Let's talk about this, the Cole Allen indictment. The Justice Department announced that a federal grand jury indicted Cole Thomas Allen on charges including attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump, assaulting a federal officer with a deadly weapon, transporting firearms and ammunition across state lines with intent to commit a felony, and discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. AP reports that Allen is also accused of firing a shotgun at a Secret Service officer during the April 25th incident that was covered live by Digital Beacon U.S. News, myself, and Gene Barradelli, that in connection with the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton, and that the officer was protected by his body armor. Those are serious charges. And yet, even though those are very serious charges, you have the milquetoast black-robed idiot who's apologizing to this moron for having him on suicide watch. I'm so sorry that things for you are not the way that they should be. Goose fraba. Now, just to put the proper tilt on all of this, everybody needs to remember an indictment is not a conviction. However, it's kind of hard to say you didn't do it when there's video of you doing it. Although we saw how well that worked out for Luigi Mangione. He is accused. He is entitled to due process. The government still has to prove its case. Although, does it really when there's video? Anyway, I'm just saying. I guess well, it may look like me, but that's not me. Which I know we're almost out of time, but this brings up again one of my favorite arrest stories ever. And the funny thing is, it actually happened to me twice. Second time was when I was working private security. So I'm dealing with this guy who was fighting with everybody else. He was being detained so we could issue a trespass summons. So of course I always, because of course as a private citizen doing private security, if I want somebody trespassed, I have to be the one to sign the ticket because the actual law enforcement folks didn't actually see the trespass. But of course, I'm able to follow a lot of the same procedures that I always did, which is pat them down. And I find a bunch of contraband in dude's pockets. This only happened to me twice in my career, but it was, I swear, if it wasn't for the fact that I was on adrenaline, I probably would have just busted up laughing both times. 2 times in my career, once on the public side, once on the private side. Someone actually said to me when I found something that was in their pockets that wasn't supposed to be there, these aren't my pants. Just saying. So, yeah, they have to prove their case, but again, he's on tape. So that's not my face. I don't know who that's not me. That's not my face. But this is where people start to notice the double standard. Before this indictment, there was already controversy over a judge reportedly apologizing, and we touched on this a second ago, to Allen over conditions at the D.C. jail. His lawyers had raised concerns about suicide watch conditions, access to counsel, and religious materials. Jail conditions matter, constitutional rights matter, access to counsel matters, but people are allowed to notice the tone. They are allowed to notice when institutions seem to find a very soft voice for certain defendants and a very hard voice for others, like the grandmas arrested for trespassing in January 6th, 2021. They are allowed to notice when the accused gets tenderness before the target gets any form of gravity. Due process does matter, but if your first public instinct is tenderness toward the accused and silence towards the target, people, especially those who don't suffer from TDS, type 1 or type 2, are going to notice. And that is where this story ties back to everything else today. People do not trust the system when they keep watching the rule book change, depending on who's holding it. Maps are sacred until Democrats want a better one. Federal law matters until a blue city mayor posts signs against it. Political violence is terrifying until the target is somebody the correct people hate. Coalitions are permanent until voters start walking away. Republican incumbents are safe until the base decides they're done rewarding surrender. Different stories, same exact smell. The rules are sacred when they restrain the other side, flexible when they help your side, and suddenly very tender when the wrong person gets accused. That's why trust is collapsing. And I'm going to go back to this part right here. The rules are sacred when they restrain the other side and flexible when they help your side. And that's the part that irritates the piss out of me with Donald Trump and FISAT. I know I keep coming back to that today, but I swear to God, with the way he watched that being abused, the fact that, it's cool now, I like it. This isn't because Americans woke up one day and decided to be cynical. I used to be a very positive person. It is because they have watched too many institutions ask for trust while behaving in ways that look like they rode with Frank and Jesse James. They have watched media choose framing based on politics. They have watched courts become political weather systems. They have watched cities ignore basic problems while chasing national applause. They have watched politicians campaign on strength and then govern like something that starts with a P. Anyway, they have watched entire communities treated like voting blocks instead of people. And now the bill is coming due. So that's where we are today. A lot of politicians talk the talk, but now the bill is coming due. It is coming due for Democrats who say democracy matters, but seem very flexible when maps are on the table. It is coming due for Republicans who say the stakes are high, but get nervous when it's time to fight. It is coming due for city leaders who would rather make a statement than solve a problem. It is coming due for politicians who treat local office like a waiting room and a stepping stone for their next campaign. It is coming due for parties that assumed voters would stay put for forever. and it's coming due for institutions that want trust while applying seriousness rather unevenly. People are tired of hearing how important everything is. They want leaders who act like it's important. That shouldn't be too much to ask. If democracy matters, if our republic is important, then follow the process. If public safety matters, protect the public, especially in public spaces. If local government matters, do the job you already have. If immigration law matters, then enforce it. If voters matter, stop treating them like they're your belongings. If political violence matters, treat it seriously, no matter who the target is. That should be the basic standard, not perfection, not magic, not some impossible fantasy where every problem is fixed by lunchtime. Speaking of which, I'm getting hungry, so I'm glad we're almost done here. Just walk the walk, because the country's heard enough speeches from people who never intended to live by them. And I'm again reminded of Barack Obama, and I talk about this all the time. I did not vote for him, but not because he was black. I didn't vote for him because I didn't like his policies. But then the night that he won, I did what I always do. I put down my banner of color. I listened to what he was telling us, and then I tried to believe him until he gave me reason not to. That is how I have treated every politician in my life, even when I lose. Once the fight is over, we used to come together. We used to work together. We used to move on. We don't do that anymore. And that is all very apparent by what's happening with this administration today, because Donald Trump is doing the same thing that he's told you he would do for over 20 years if he ever became president. And that was if nobody else took care of it first. If it became an important enough issue, he would make sure that Iran never got a nuclear weapon because they can't ever be allowed to have one. And now everybody's acting squeamish and squishy. Because again, the same people who are hemming and hawing about $4 and $5 gallon per gas now were fine when Barack Obama said that Americans need to get used to $6, $7 per gallon, or maybe even get used to what Europe pays, which is €4 per liter, which is a lot more than $4 per gallon in both senses of the word. But it would be good for the environment, and it would save the polar ice caps, and it would save the penguins, and it would do this and do that. And what pisses me off about all these same people that are always screaming and yelling about gas prices now, these were the same people that when gas got really expensive under Joe Biden started floating the possibility of 15-minute cities, meaning you really didn't need a car. You lived in a place where you could walk anywhere within your area within 15 minutes, whether it was to work, whether it was to the store, whether it was to whatever. And then when that idea didn't really seem to take hold and other people were starting to complain about gas being even more expensive than it is right now, well, people need to walk more anyway. And that is why I think, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of different political figures are going to be finding out in 2026 that the bill has come due. The people who only talk usually find out they don't have enough in the account. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, all you really got to do is look at Indiana. All right. We're going to get out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Zelda, I've never in my life called you a liar, but I will say that you are suddenly full of male bovine excrement, because I'm pretty sure you were asleep until like 5 minutes ago. But thanks for the chat anyway. All right, we're going to get out of here. Again, it is Chat Lives Matter Day, live right here on KLRN Radio. That's going to conclude this one. I'll be back tonight starting at 7 p.m. Eastern for Kingdom and Country Bible Study, followed by the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show, followed by Behind the Enemy Lines Radio, followed by Rick and Orty, followed by Edge of Liberty, equipment withstanding. I guess we'll see. Because, yeah, he was having a computer issue. Yeah. Sorry for no men explained poorly last night. I've been fighting with plumbing. I think I have it narrowed down for now. And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to jinx it. Bye, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Or Friday. Can you tell I wish it was Friday already? Anyway, I know y'all do too. But for those of you working for the weekend, you are nearly there. Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out today.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky.
Say goodnight, Gracie.